So glad to see you all here. We have a very special treat for you all. This is part of our Voices of Israel series. It's great to see some faces who were here for our first speaker. And it's wonderful to see new faces here for Rabbi Ende. It is such a pleasure to have him here. He traveled all the way from Israel, from Kibbutz Hanaton, to be here with us tonight. It's really a privilege to welcome you here and to find out that you actually have some connections already to Cleveland and to some of our members. By way of introduction, this is a really special person here. Rav Ende is the founder and the head of the Hanaton Educational Center in northern Israel. He's a conservative rabbi, Masorti. He has a BA in Israel's history and an MA in conflict management. Rav Yoav led the reestablishment of Kibbutz Hanaton as an egalitarian, diverse community and founded the Hanaton Educational Center with its gap year program. He lives on Kibbutz Hanaton with his wife Shira and their 4 children. We're so excited to learn from him tonight. It's really a special privilege. Before I throw it over to you officially, just a word on food. It is coming. There will be a falafel dinner. So at some point, whenever it's out, feel free to help yourselves. And Rav Ende knows that we'll be eating a bit through this, but it'll be. I know you came all the way here for something different, and we're giving you falafel. But thank you so much for being here, and I'll throw it over to you now.
Shalom לכולם, ערב טוב. So it's really excited to be here. It's my first time in Cleveland, but my father coming here told me, just know that your grandfather was a rabbi in Cleveland in Temple on the Heights. And he wasn't sure if he was an assistant rabbi or an educational coordinator. So it turns out that my grandfather, Rabbi George Ende of blessed memory, was a rabbi here in this shul. 1944, I think, or 45, not sure, was the educational director. And I've already met several people who knew him back then. So for me.
You picked the wall yet?
So
Hold on, we check those.
So yeah, so I'm waiting to see his picture here. That would be great. So for me, well, we'll look at it. Okay. So for me, it's really.
It's gonna be too cramped.
So for me, it's very special. It's very even emotional to be here, because my grandfather was a great person for me, and so was my grandmother, of course, but she stayed in New York while he came here. So it's a very special place to be. So thank you for having me here. It's my first visit here in Cleveland, but I think it won't be the last. So I want to talk to you today about hope, about despair, about our future. Because it's what we live and what we struggle in Israel, and I think also here, because since the 7th of October, I think we've all been moved, hurt, inspired, etc., in many ways, and we're thinking about, I'm thinking about the future that I'm leaving for my kids, for my students, and the state we have to build in our people. We have a lot of work on our hands, and I want to share that with you and share my hope. But I'll begin a little bit about explaining where I'm coming from and what's the place I'm leading. And then we'll go into the text and we'll see how much time we have. You can ask questions whenever you want. You can eat how much you want in the middle of the shiur. Doesn't bother me at all. Just going to be a discussion. And I just want you to be here. That's what's important for me, and that I can bring value to your life, to this lesson. So a few words about myself. My name is Rabbi Yoav. My father made Aliyah from the United States. They lived in Brooklyn. They made Aliyah to Israel. My mother made Aliyah from Iraq. They met in Israel, and I was born, privileged enough to be born in Israel in an Iraqi American family, conservative, traditional, and I grew up in the center of Israel, in Herzliya or the Sharon, in that area. And I grew up really up in the secular society, but within the institutions that my parents built for us, because first generation of immigrants always build institutions for their children, the schools, the nurseries, whatever, congregations, youth movement, and that's exactly my parents, 1970s, the chalutzim of the Masorti conservative movement came, made aliyah, and built these different institutions, which my generation grew up in them. So now I am part of the leadership that was born in Israel, that's taking a step forward, saying, how do we build our country? How do we build our movement? What's our task in these generations? So that's, in a nutshell, my story. A few words about Chanaton. Before we enter this, I was finishing up rabbinical school, and I wanted to build an intentional community that will live, that its life mission will also be to build our life and our children's life, but also to build our state, to build our Torah. And I was looking for an intentional community which will be diverse, religious, secular, right wing, left wing, because we want a lot of communities in Israel, but we do not want what's called sectorim, a lot of sectors, meaning Orthodox are here, secular are here, Haredi are here, Arabs are here. That weakens us. So we have to try to live as one community. It's not always easy, but it's important. And I was searching for a place like that and really couldn't find a place that I could practice my Judaism in an egalitarian way. Because even when it's mixed in Israel, it's secular and Orthodox, it's always secular and Orthodox. And religion, in terms of pluralism, egalitarianism, we have to struggle for that. So we rebuilt Chanaton. I'll say a few words about Chanaton. Chanaton was built in the 1980s as a part of the Masorti conservative movement. Kind of didn't really succeed in its first 20 years. And we rebuilt it up in 2009. I came there with 6 families. Today we're 200. We're building more, and we're very strong in a young community. And after we built up our community, I built up the Leadership Center in order to educate the next leaders of Israel. Leaders who are knowledgeable, who are critical, who are pluralistic in the deepest sense, and who want to build and feel the responsibility on their shoulders. Because we need good leadership to bring our state to better places. So that's mamash in a nutshell. I forgot, I brought actually here some brochures. I'll put them out later. Someone wants to learn more about Chanaton, and any questions about Chanaton, I'll be really happy to answer. Hope. So what is hope? What is tikva? I'll tell you what it's not. It's not how you wake up in the morning and if you feel good or if you feel bad. I wish it was, but it's more difficult than that. So I want to learn about hope because I feel that it's what I have to give to the younger generation to see hope as an ideal. So I want to go through Jewish sources, then look about Zionist thinkers, and then talk about these times and what do we do? Because I'll say this, that Israel right now, today, we feel in Israel today that we are kind of back to the 6th of October. We're at each other's necks, if that's a phrase you can use. We're fighting in Gaza. We have hostages, 59 hostages in Gaza. And the streets are burning with people holding opposing ideas, with the government and leadership that's part of the struggle and not bringing us to better places. Doesn't matter if you're right or left. It's a part of the balagan, as we say. And we're struggling for our inner borders and struggling for our borders outside of Israel, struggling for our identity, who we are, and struggling basically also for our life. That's a lot of struggles. So we feel that these are important times, and we have to look beyond them to bring this our society to better places. So I'm hopeful. I'm holding on to hope as an ideal to struggle for. So let's start to see what hope is. But before we go into the text, I wonder if someone wants to give to me his or her a framework or words. What is hope? How would you characterize hope in one sentence? This is an open question.
Future.
The future. Hope is the future. Any more thoughts? Thank you. And you want it to be positive. And you want the future to be positive. A positive perception of the future. That's hope. Thank you.
Things can be better.
Believe that things can be better. Okay, believe that things can be better and a positive perception of the future. So let's begin. Hope in Sefer Bereshit, the first time we hear, now I'm going to read the translation, but the first time we hear, we see a word that deals with, that is in the same doors, the same notion of hope is in Sefer Bereshit. And I will read the Hebrew, and if someone can read the English. Vayomer Elohim yikavu, yikavu is the word, yikavu hamayim mitachat hashamayim el makom echad v'terei hayabasha vayichen. Anybody want to read the English?
God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together to one place, and let the dry land appear. It was so.
So gathered together, the word in Hebrew is yikavu hamayim. Now what is happening? Yikavu hamayim, yikavu mishon tikva. What does that say to us? Yikavu hamayim. Creation is bringing order to this world. And when you bring things together, other things reveal. When the world is a mess and you're saying, what is true, what is false, you start losing, everything's a balagan. Everything is like, what's your anchor? Your truth is my lie, your hope is my despair. And if you want to start making sense out of things, yikavu hamayim, so tikva would mean to bring things together, would mean to make sense out of things. And when you start doing that, then you suddenly see land, you start seeing people, but to go deeper than that, some people, a lot of people in Israel, when you ask them, how can you find hope? Or where is your hope? And they would say this, they would say, the hope lies in becoming one people that can live together, that can talk to one another, that can listen to one another, and share the same goal or same heart, if you may. When that'll happen, I will feel hope. So share the same values. So in that sense, tikva, hope, it doesn't say about what's going to happen in the future and where are we going. It says, let's try to gather things together. Let's try to make sense out of it. And that will bring us hope. So that's one thought about hope, okay? From Sefer Bereshit. Now let's jump to a different perception of hope, which is from Sefer Yoshua. The story of Yoshua sends his spies to Yericho because they're going to conquer the land of Israel. And he enters the house of Rachav Azona. And she brings the spies into her home, and she understands these spies. She understands the Israelites are going to conquer their land, conquer the state. And just before they go down in the window, these verses appear. And I will read the Hebrew, and then if someone can read the English, that'd be amazing. So, Hine anachnu ba'im. I can't even see as good as I could in this. הנה אנחנו באים, את תקוות חוט השני הזה, תקשרי בחלון, אשר הורדנו בו, ואת אביך ואת אמך ואת אחיך ואת כל בית אביך, תאספי אלייך הביתה. תקוות חוט השני. Okay, if someone can read the English.
Behold, when we come into the land, thou shalt bind this cord of scarlet thread in the window, which thou didst let it down by. Thou shalt bring thy father, thy mother, thy brother, all thy father's household unto thee to the house.
Thank you. So I'm gonna, because the English and the Hebrew are different, so I want to tell you what the words I'm looking for. Tikvat chut hashani. So it says, behold, when we come into the land, thou shalt bind this cord of scarlet thread in the window. This cord of scarlet thread, in Hebrew it says, tiksheri tikvat chut hashani. It means that what is bind the cord. I can't make sense of it out of English, but it says tikvat chut hashani. It says tikva is hope in Hebrew. It says the tikva, hope itself, is the scarlet thread. Okay, that's the interpretation. Tikvat chut hashani says, what is tikva? What is hope? Hope is the scarlet thread, meaning what? Well, you talk about the thread of hope. Okay, thank you. So here, hope is not gathering things together. Here, tikvat hi chut hashani. Here, hope is a thread. Hope is a rope. He says, take that rope, throw it out the window. That's a story, right? It says, so hope is a rope, basically, is a thread. So what does that mean, that hope is a rope? Okay. Haramchal, Rabbi Chaim, Moshe David Lutzato, Haramchal, he writes an article which is called Ma'amar Kivui, an article about tikva. Lishuatcha kiviti Hashem. He says, tikva is kav. Kav is a line. Tikva is a line, is knowing how to draw a line, is that thread. So what does that mean that tikva is a thread? That tikva is a chut, is a line. What can you make out of that? Or what comes up to your mind when you hear that? Connects between dots or, okay, so go a little bit deeper than that. What does that mean to connect? That means to relationship, okay, toda.
Gather together people.
Together people, okay.
Mikal.
Bring points together, like when you draw between points and, okay.
So hope is a thread, and a thread means it can be broken. So we have to be careful.
So it's very, very gentle. So the hope is something very
sensitive.
fragile. Okay, okay, so kav is like something thin that can't be broken. More thoughts, more,
But if it's thread that's bound together, then it's not as fragile.
right, if it's bound together.
Yeah, so if it's, I
Okay,
mean.
so it's pretty strong. It looks gentle, it's pretty.
Or,
Okay, so thank you for all that. That's a lot of interesting thing. But tikvat chut hashani, I want to take you to what the Ramchal is thinking about. Why is tikvat kav? And in order to do that, I'm bringing you words of David Grossman, which maybe a lot of you know, which is a writer in Israel these days, for many days. His son was killed. He was in Bashirion. His son was killed in the second Lebanese war. David Grossman was a figure even before that, but after that, even carrying the pain. So here, what David Grossman writes about hope, and it's a good interpretation of what it means that hope is a thread. It's not the only, but an interpretation that I wanna suggest. So if anybody would like to, I just mind to read English, you probably do a much better job than I. So that's where. Thank you.
Hope can be seen as a kind of anchor, cast from a suffocating and desperate existence towards a better and clear future, towards a reality that does not yet exist, one wisely made of wishes and imagination. The anchor is thrown, takes hold of the ground of the future. The individual, or sometimes an entire society, begins to pull themselves toward it.
What is hope? Does it mean that hope is a thread? Hope is a kav. It's an anchor we throw. It's a kav שיוצא מקצה העולם ועד סופו. It's a thread that goes out from one point to the future, and it brings us there. Hope is knowing, in this interpretation, not only to bring things together, to bring people together, is not to ask the question who we are, is to ask the question, where are we going? What is the future picture? Where do we want to get to? We can all be together. We can also die together. We can also fall out of a cliff together. Being together is not enough. If we look at this, we have to know, where do we get to? That's hope. Knowing to throw that anchor and saying, that's where I get to, and then start pulling yourself out. Now, these two interpretations of hope, Israel, I think, and I live in Israel, I work in Israel, it's my life. Israel, I think, is split in the middle. People are saying, "B'yachad nenatzeach," together we will win this war. If we are together, we will win. And we have to be together. We have to be achdut. Look what happened on the 6th of October. We were all fighting in the streets, and then our enemies thought we were so weak, they attacked us. We're never as weak as people think we are, but we were hurt in an unimaginable way. And other people are saying, "B'yachad nenatzeach," it's good to be together, but what do you want? Do you want a two-state solution? Do you want a one-state solution? Where do you want to get to? Do you want this kind of state, that kind of state? Do you want the Haredim to be here? If you want hope, you have to tell me where's our goal? Where do we throw our anchor? And together is nice, but I'm going to struggle for my future picture. And if you're not a part of it, well then, okay, then you're not my partner in this. Even though you're a Jew, you're Israeli, or you're Arab in Israel, it doesn't matter what. I have to create a future for my kids. I have to build a state, and I have to know where to get to. Now, as we know, theory is always clearer than reality is. So what's hope for Israel? It probably lies in both places in some senses. We can't give up the solution. We can't give up saying, what's our vision? And if we hold that vision, not being together or having a critical mass, we're not going to get there. Maybe I should have said this before. What comes up to mind, I want to share with you that when I was in the army, when I was a soldier in the army, this is I was drafted in 1994. During my army service, Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated. And when Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated, this is from my generation. This is kind of the major event that really turned our life around. That's how I feel. For my kids' generation, it's this world, or it's this terrible war. This terrible loss is changing our lives. But meeting this war when you're 20, 25, 30, extremely difficult. So when Rabin was assassinated, I was in one of the, I was a soldier doing what soldiers do. I was in one of the borders in Israel. And it seems like history, we had no cell phone. We had, of course, no TV. We're in the army. But someone opened the radio and said, listen, I heard somebody talking in Bakesher, it doesn't matter, that Rabin was shot. What? We didn't understand what's happening. Anyways, to make a long story short, we turned on the radio. We understood within a few hours what happened. And here I was, a soldier in the border of Israel, and I was saying, where is my enemy? Where is my work? Where is my challenge? Is it here? Is it there? Where do I have to put my life in security, in building our society? So we were in a peace process, and we have to be in both places, and it's difficult. But we can't give up hope. Can't give up our togetherness, and we can't give up our future. And to hold these two is not always easy, but is there any alternative? And I would say there is no alternative, but hope. And there's research about hope. I'm sure some of you know this better than I do. Research in the medical world, research in Medinut Tziburit, research about hope, what hope is, what makes hope, what defines hope. So the best definition that I like, that hope is, of course, a will, zeratzon, is having a dream. But hope is also a conception, machshava, whether that wish, whether that will is based in reality or not. So if I want, I hope that everybody in this world will love me, but if that's not really realistic, then that's not hope, right? So hope has to be realistic in some senses, but it also has to be a little bit above reality. because it has to be that anchor to go beyond reality. So hope is a thought, and hope is hope is a machshava v'ratzon. Hope is a thought, and hope is a will. And it has to be anchored in reality in some senses, and it has to be anchored in action. No action, no hope. No action, no hope. And there are researches about people who are ill, they need hope to, recover. A child with no hope can't really build his life. A sick person with no hope can't really recover. So we know this as people, right? But as nations, sometimes it slips our mind. We thought we could live without hope. What's going to be in the future? Oh, well, who knows? You have a seder, and we trouble ourselves with other things. We don't really look at places we don't want to look at. Today, Israel is being hurt so bad, we have to look at our darkest corners and understand what's going to happen. Where shall we come? How can we hold hope as an ideal? Fight for hope, not feel hope. Not wake up in the morning and say, oh, it's a wonderful world. No, it's hard to wake up in the morning. It's hard to hear the news, but we cannot give up hope. And that's work. That is work. And that's the work we're trying to do. So to go back and to reveal what hope is even more, I want to talk about Yeush, despair. Yeush is despair is the Yeush, Banglit? Okay, about despair. I don't know about you, but talking about despair is even more interesting because we all like to be in despair sometimes. And Rabbi Nachman says, "Kol haolam kulo gesher tzar meod, va'ikar lo lefachad klal." Right? We all run away from despair. So, in order to talk about despair, we could talk about and learn about in many ways. But I wanted to bring two Zionist thinkers to talk about despair, and I brought actually only one because I felt too many texts here, anyways. So, the two Zionist thinkers that write beautifully about despair is Aleph Dalet Gordon and Brenner. Aleph Dalet Gordon and Brenner are both what we call Aliyah Shniya. Okay, they came to Israel late 1800s, early 1900s. They lived in Israel before. They both did not get to the point that Israel was built, but they were really the thinkers. Not only them, there were more, but they were the dominant thinkers of Aliyah Shniya. There was also Rachel HaMeshoreret and other people, but Brenner was the person of truth, and Aleph Dalet Gordon was like the Rebbe, the person who came to Israel when he was 40, and et cetera, et cetera. So when Aleph Dalet Gordon talks to his students and to his people, he says, I am looking, he says, I'll say this in Hebrew, he says, Havu li mityashim. He says, the people who will build Israel are the people who are in despair. I hope I'm saying this good in English. He says, he wants people who are mityashim. Now this, I couldn't find this in English, only in Hebrew. So a person from Rachel from our team translated it. So I hope it's, I hope it makes sense. So let's try to read what Gordon says about Yeush, says about despair. So does anybody feel bad enough that he can read about despair?
Especially the despairing individual who is not awake, does not expect mercy in reality, and does not lift his eyes to the strength of the many. He himself is the Redeemer. That is, he himself leaps into the sea. He himself takes upon himself the great burden, even if it will crush him.
Okay. So how do you understand Gordon? What does Gordon say? Why is he looking for those people in despair? So if they have nothing to lose, what is that?
cannot trust anybody. He has to trust himself to do something in order to build something, to get from the depths of despair.
He cannot trust anybody, only himself, and he will do the work that needs to be done. Okay, Toda. More thoughts? Yes.
We have a we have a hero who jumped into the water and the sea split.
So, but why did he jump in the water? Did he know the sea? You know, there's the Midrashim, right? The Midrashim says, part of the Midrashim say, the Midrashim is, how do you say Midrash? Midrash, right? The Midrashim said, nobody wanted to jump into the water, right? About Nachshon Aminadav. Nobody wanted to jump in the water. Someone pushed Nachshon, but someone said, well, no. He jumped into the water, not knowing where Israel is, not knowing where he has to get to, not knowing. So why did he jump? Was he full of hope? Did he believe? Or was he full of despair? And what's he had faith. Which is maybe beyond. So yes.
It just made me think of the anchor metaphor that he was an anchor. He threw himself, he didn't have an anchor, he was the anchor, he threw himself. I wonder if you're at a point where you're so despairing, you don't have hope, which is an anchor, so you yourself become that hope.
He was the anchor.
Yeah.
Maxim. Yafeh, toda. So Gordon, he writes about this in Hebrew in colorful ways. Only translated a fraction of it. But see what he says. Maybe this will give us kind of a clearer answer. So if you want to continue.
Give us individuals, give us the despairing, give us individuals who do not surrender and do not abandon the struggle. And give us despairing ones who channel their despair into building one single thing. Then you will see and realize what despairing individuals, even those who are not so extraordinary, can create in this land of Israel. For so many are now losing hope. Then you will see and realize what a force of renewal and creation they can.
So talking about me. He was talking, you have to understand, pioneers that came to Israel, a lot of them left Israel. A lot of them left Israel.
Yeah.
World War I, the world was going crazy. Diseases, security. I think he had it much harder than we have it today, but so why is Golden saying, he says in English, give us individuals, give us in despairing. In Hebrew, it's Havu lanu mityashim. Havu lanu mityashim. Golden says, I want the people who gave up or who are in despair. So from the paragraph we just read now, does it reveal something else?
That can be a little bit like the people in the Shoah and like in Ghetto Warsaw. They knew they are dying. They are out of despair. They revolted.
Wow. Did you all hear each other?
Yeah.
Okay,
They might not hear on Zoom. They might not hear.
okay. So it said, it's like Mered Ghetto Varsha, Mered Ghetto Lodz, the people who had say, we're going to die. But maybe they never felt more alive in that revolt. Okay? And Golden does talk about it. He talks about a captain in a ship that's sinking. He says, what would we think of a captain who would take a boat and just run away? Or that captain who, when the boat is sinking, would do everything to save more people, even though he knew he was. No, so why does Golden want to spare? Yes.
It makes me think of the establishment of the modern state. If you look at everything that led to it, there were such seemingly insurmountable odds from all sides. I mean, the fact that it's a Jewish state, a democratic country in the middle of all these Islamic states, and if you look at the history, and if you look at the war that broke out right when that was happening, and the fact that many of the people who were fighting were survivors of the Shoah, and And if you look at all of that, it does not seem very likely that the state would be established, and yet it was.
Well, תודה. Yes.
Spirit could be a great motivator.
Continue.
You know, if you see, I mean, it's a very thin line, yes. You either go negatively and say, I'm so much in despair, I can't do anything. But if you see that nothing's happening around you, that you're not satisfied with the situation, you're desperate for something. Desperate can also mean not that you're going down, you're desperate for something, not against something. You're desperate for something to happen. So all of a sudden you become, it's a motivator that if things aren't going well, things aren't the way you want it to be, the only choice is for you to go and change.
So thin line and it's a motivator. יפה, תודה רבה. Yes, last one.
Also could be, I feel I have nothing to lose.
So why is that? What is that?
Words, I'm gonna try my best to.
I have nothing to lose and I'm gonna give it all. So I think Golden was more optimistic than that, but what you're all saying is very, very, very true. And he talks about the chalutzim and he says people who, he says this, I'll say this in English, he says, people who wanna succeed, wanna build up Israel. They come to Israel for a month, two, for a year, they haven't built up the state, they leave. People who know that they're not gonna build up the state maybe in their life, they're not leaving. And in a sense that Gordon says, why is he saying, I don't think he's a pessimistic person, but Gordon's saying, if you're here and you feel tomorrow, everything's gonna be solved. Let's talk about peace. When are we gonna solve the Palestinian question? So people are saying, oh, well, we tried Eskemei Oslo, and we tried this, and we tried that, and we gave them a state, and Barak, and Olmert, and Rabin, and they never want this, and they never want that, it's never gonna work, and let's just give it up. But if you say, I will not give up on peace, and I will try knowing that I might fail. But if I fail, I will try again. I fail, I will try again. I fail, I will try again, because I cannot lose hope. So Gordon says, it's kind of a word thing, right? But he says, I am looking for people who know they will fall 10 times, 20 times, but will not give up. Not that they're not going to succeed, but maybe it's not going to happen tomorrow. Maybe it's not going to happen next year. People in Israel, and when you talk about peace, when I see this with religious people a lot, and saying, peace, what are you talking about? Are you naive? We tried this, we tried that, Don't be naive, we will never make peace. It's the Middle East. The same people will believe in what's called Tchiyat HaMeitim, returning, how do you say Tchiyat HaMeitim in English? Resurrection, or they will leave and the Messiah coming. No, but peace, no, that's too much. So I say, ma. זה כמעט חילול השם. So Gordon is saying, אבולים מתייאשים, I want those people who are not going to give up, even if it's not going to happen tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, because we will get there. That's why he wants people in despair, not people that have great dreams, and they come, and if they don't succeed, they fall apart, and they leave, and everything's black, and forget about it. That's not how we're going to build a state. That's Gordon. And Brenner, which I didn't bring his, and rightfully so, I didn't bring it because we wouldn't say. Brenner says, if you know Brenner is a man of truth. Brenner goes against religion. It's apikores from Mikas, but very knowledgeable. And Brenner, he talks about the af al pichen. It's called the af al pichen abrenneri. What's af al pichen? In spite of, נכון? ואף על פי שיתממע עם כל זה, we will wait for the Messiah. אף על פי, in spite of, he's not gonna come, not today, not tomorrow, not next week, he's not gonna come, but I will wait. Now, Brennan, don't be wrong. He's secular, he's angry, he doesn't believe in God in the sense that someone's gonna save him. But Brennan quotes, he talks to, he writes to the youth and he says, "Ve'af al pichen," he said, Israel is a bad place. It's hard here, it's not good, it's not wonderful. Better off staying other places if you're looking for an easy life. By the way, he says other places are also very bad. Even all this world looks bad. He's kind of mania depressia, Brennan. But he's saying, "Ve'af al pichen," it's tough. "Ve'af al pichen," we will get through this. Not because it's easy, but that's what he's looking for. That's what we are looking for. We can't sell to the younger generation today in their 16, even 13, 14, or kids who are 20, 18, or people who are soldiers or in reserves. We can't tell them, "Oh, don't worry, it'll be all right." They've seen things that my kids are facing a reality which is worse and harder and much more difficult than the reality that I faced when I was their age. That, for me, is a total failure. It should be the other way around. I hope you feel the other way around with your kids, but I say, this is crazy. This is crazy. And I can't tell my kids, "Don't worry, it'll be okay." That's not serious enough. We have to give them hope. We have to struggle. We have to bring better times. We have to be together. We have to say where we're going. There's a lot of work to be done, and we're not sure we're going to do it tomorrow. But if you want to create leadership that will create hope, it has to be strong. It has to be knowledgeable. It has to be Jewish. It has to be Zionist. It also has to be humanistic, because that's Zionism, nationalism and humanism together, from what I've learned and from what I teach. So hope and despair, in some senses, are not enemies. In some senses, they can go together. In some senses, okay? But I'm a hopeful person, okay? I don't fall into despair, but I'm having my moments, and I think we all are. I know here in the United States, the 7th of October, you were hurt, and you felt that I meant emotionally and physically. You were there also, in a lot of senses. I know here you see pictures and hear people and have to face a lot of things that we don't have to face in Israel. And we have to face things you don't have to face, but we're all sharing these troubled times. So how do we go out of these troubled times? We need leadership. Without good leadership, I don't think we're going to get anywhere. And that's what we're trying to do in Chanaton. Not only in Chanaton, so many good people are trying to do it. I was privileged enough to be a Mandel fellow, is that how you say, a Mandel student in a program in Israel, in the northern part of Israel. And we can't do it enough. So now I want to take you into, go back to hope a little bit, but go into what kind of leadership are we looking for that will lead us into better times and hope. If I know I didn't see anybody taking falafel and food, and does that mean this is interesting, or is this the falafel not good? So I don't want to. Do you want to like do a 5-minute break to bring food? Yeah. You want people to?
It's a very nice offer. I think we'll keep going, but invite everyone to help yourselves now that it's all out.
Rolling
Rolling through.
Keep going.
Beseder. So go back. I want to share with you Rabbi Jonathan Sachs is in Israel. His writings are all in Hebrew right now. Thank God he didn't grow up in Israel, wasn't educated in Israel, and he left. He lived out of Israel. I think that gives him a great perception. And he writes about optimism and hope, the difference between them, which I think is very, very important. And this is also, by the way, this is also in studies and research. This is not just like, philosophical thinking about perceptions. It's deeper than that. So let's see what Rabbi Sachs writes about optimism and hope. If anybody wants to read his words.
And I'll hand a mic to whoever's reading. Great, thanks, Rachel.
Many of us confuse two concepts, optimism and hope. They sound similar, but in truth, they're very different. Can we keep going?
Yeah, please.
Optimism is the belief that things will get better. Hope is the belief that together we can make things better. To be optimistic, one does not need courage, only a certain innocence. But to have hope requires great courage. No Jew who knows the history of our people, much of it written in tears, can be an optimist. But no Jew, if they're truly a Jew, can ever give up on hope. And that is why, for me, Judaism is the voice of hope in the conversation of humankind. And hope is what changes the condition of humanity.
Okay, תודה. כן.
The Jews believe in the faith and do things, except for the Orthodox.
The Jews what? I'm sorry.
That it was in them to do the thing. Except for the Orthodox, God will do it. Nothing will, God will see to it. That will happen. And some of the Christians are the same thing. Jesus will, he'll help me. We generally believe they have to do it themselves. We have to help someone. To achieve something.
תודה, thank you. Any more thoughts, perceptions about this? Yes.
I'm not gonna elaborate, but I think it.
Thank you. Any more understandings of what Rav Sachs, you know, in Hebrew, I'm in Israel, a lot of people say the word Yetov. I'm sure a lot of you heard it. Ma kore? What's happening? Yetov. What does Yetov mean? Matai Yetov. Right. Yetov is, Yetov, it will be good, it will be okay, right? So when the world is going kilo upside down and you ask people, Ma yet? Yetov. That's one answer. The other answer, which is our religious, and when I'm saying religious, I'm not saying Orthodox or not, I'm just saying religious people say a lot, and also some secular, saying, Am hanetzach lo mefached miderech aruka. The eternal people are not afraid of a long journey. So some people say, I will do my best and it's up to God. Some people will say that, I think it goes beyond definitions, but it's a matter of belief, right? So Rabbi Sachs says, being optimistic and saying, Yetov, don't worry, the Jews are such an ancient nation, we will be okay. How will we be okay? What's your plan for being okay? How should we get there? You know, you haven't said there. It will be okay. Rabbi Sachs says, no, we cannot be optimistic. Being optimistic is not going to get us very, very far. Being hopeful is being much more than optimistic. And I think that's very, very, very important. So we're living in a complex reality. Some people are using complexity as an excuse not to go beyond complexity. In Hebrew, he says complexity is murkav. So, ma koreh? It's murkav, אחי. Like maybe sometimes you have to understand, you have to explain about Israel, and you say, well, it's complex. It's more complex. You have to, which is true. But if you use complexity as an excuse, you're not really trying to get anywhere. You're trying to stop and say, it will somehow work out. But Rabbi Sachs says, optimistic is not a plan. Hope is the plan. And now, I told you before about the research of hope, which says you have to have a ratzon, a will. You have to have a thought. Maybe thought is not a... You have to think, can this happen? You have to have a will for it to happen. And you have to have action. Without action, there is no hope. Without ma'aseh. Ma'aseh in Jewish terms is halacha.
Can you talk about the action that you see happening in Israel right now?
Okay.
that is hopeful?
I will. Thing that you have to try. So let me, so Rabbi Hal said to me, can you think about, can you share with us hopeful actions? That's what I understand. So we see in Israel today, on the one hand, you know, the 6th of October, the 7th of October, we saw tragedies, pain. You know what we saw. Parallel to that, we are inspired. We see amazing people and actions. And I a lot of times say, I cannot believe I live amongst such people. But to be more specific, I will tell you what we see in Israel that's inspiring, that is hopeful. So first one, I want to talk about our civil society, which is way faster and stronger and maybe even resilient than some of our government. Our civil society on the 8th of October started working when we were all in shock. The amount of help, the amount of recovery, the amount of support that our civil society in Israel is doing. And by the way, the society, the Jewish world it's unimaginable in the sense that what our society is bringing to the people, to the soldiers, to the family, to the sick, to the wounded. Every place you want, civil society is there. The Jewish people, you guys are there. That is inspiring. That makes us hopeful. That's one arm which is extremely strong. We look at our younger generation. I haven't really maybe talked enough about our programs at Hanaton and what we do, but we work with the younger generation, 18, 19, 20, 30s. I have students for the last 13 years through our gap year program. Our young generation in Israel, we look at them and we are inspired beyond tears, I would say. A younger generation, when this war broke out, we were all really not understanding what's happening. You know what our students did? And not only our students, the young generation, they were fighting for getting a ticket to find not even to find a seat, to find a spot in the airplane to come and to enter into Gaza. I'm saying this firsthand. I had students in India, in Europe, in South America, in the United States, in Germany. Everyone's running away from war. Our young generation is running into war, not because they want to die. It's because they want to live, because they have hope. Our younger generation are moving back to the north and back to the south. Our younger generation is unbelievable, and I can't even start to explain what they're coping with. The amount of people that around them are being hurt. So what are things that are bringing great hope? Our young generation, our civil society, and leaders within our society. So just keep in mind that together with things that are very hard for us, we are inspired and uplifted by things that we see in our society.
Been through this already.
Yeah. So one of the older guys, you know, of course we can't, you know, generalize, of course, but I would say this: we're all looking for mentors and looking for people who have been there in different situations. And so am I. And also, it interests me because people who have been through so much, when they reach a stage in life where they want things to be better, and they're not. And I will tell you, I will start with Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, at the end, before Simchat Torah, we read Shirat Ha'azinu. Moshe Rabbeinu dies, and before he dies, he said, I know you're gonna, this is the lack of better wording, I know you're gonna sin again. I know you're gonna not walk in good ways. Like before he dies, he says, I know these people will do bad things before I die. And what does he leave them? He leaves them with a song. How can you end this world with saying this world is a tough place and the Jewish people are not gonna, so we're not looking for perfection. but we're looking for a hope, we're looking for a song. And there are older people who are really, as we all are, really challenged, but there are people and mentors and teachers who are giving us their song, their perception, and are talking about, maybe you know this better than I do, talking about the days after the Yom Kippur War and the disaster that we had back then, and are teaching us things that happened then that might happen now, about lack of trust, about building back again. So we are finding teachers that will lead us in this way, and we're looking for those voices. So in order to perceive, and we're reaching the end, and I want to talk about leadership for this time in two texts. One of them is a song, Nomi Shemer, that I feel like maybe putting it on, there's a melody it's also beautiful. It says, a sign that we have not yet arrived. In Hebrew, it says, Siman shelo eganu. And the other one is an act of leadership by Professor David Eri, which I met through actually being in the Mandel group in the North. And David Eri writes the following. Remember, I told you you have to have a will, but you have to be realistic, not to be like. But he writes the following words, which I think are extremely important. Anybody would like to read what Professor Eri says? Someone who's not really chewing in the falafel right now, but we'll find one of you. אז אני אשמח שתקראי לי, אני אדבר בעברית פה, יש לי רק את האנגלית, כן.
Okay, great. Okay.
Only those who set themselves an impossible challenge can strive toward the self they are capable of becoming. Adventure is essential. We discover and define who we are. We bring forth our inner light. Only when we challenge what we have taken for granted and yearn for what lies beyond the fences that enclose our existence. This is a path filled with fears, resistance, and obstacles, while the alternative, being like everyone else, offers comfort and security.
Professor Eri says, if we aspire for what we know we're going to get, that's not leadership. We have to go beyond that. You know, unless we would never make it to the moon, we would never get to maybe AI, we would never make peace with Jordan or peace with Egypt. If we think about what realistic, saying, I am not pessimistic, I am realistic. Do you know that sentence? When people say that, I'm like, give me a break. You're not pessimistic, you're real. Being realistic means having hope. Because we would not get to better places if we couldn't kind of jump a little bit beyond reality. However, would we make peace with the Egyptians, our most hard and strongest enemies? Hope. So having a will, having a thought, but going beyond reality, not being illusional, but going beyond reality, that is leadership. We will reach peace. We will get to a better place. We will have a shared goal. We can reach inner peace. That's what we have to strive for, and we can. But parallel to that, and we'll end with a song, sometimes it takes time. So how do you teach people to be resilient, to stick in there, even if we're not there? Nomi Shemer writes the song, and it's called Siman shelo eganu. And maybe I will, my cell phone is not here. I wanted to share with you in 20 seconds. Maybe we'll hear.
Look it up while you.
Yeah, maybe we'll just hear a few melody from that song. I see it's upside. I see it's I will read it. It's
The bottom,
it's mixed. The right should be on the left. So let's hear the song or the beginning of it, and then we'll talk a little bit and conclude.
Yeah, no, wait, that's.
You can write Siman Shelo Iganu, maybe that would be easier. Oh, here it is. Now, hold this. YouTube, can.
You still have to look at the song.
You can write Siman Shelo, and you'll get to it on YouTube. Do you have Hebrew there?
I don't know if there's Hebrew in that keyboard. You have to change, or wait.
Just
And then-
just
would be in the
type
bottom
it
corner.
in phonetics.
בסדר, לא נורא, לא נורא. סימן שלו, let's see if it works.
Uh,
Naomi Shem.
Naomi Shenner.
Naomi Shem.
זה סימן טוב. טוב, לא נורא, לא נורא. הופה, הנה.
Is it on sound share
I'm
for
gonna
the
do that
Zoom?
now.
Yeah, go on to the, share with sound. Advanced. Yeah, Video file? video file?
All right, ready?
כן.
אתה רואה דקלים? דקלים איני רואה.
Okay.
אתה רואה גמלים.
גמלים איני
Forward.
Okay, they turned the song into a theater play. So, yes, אתה רואה דקלים, דקלים, איני רואה. That's a סימן שעוד לא הגענו. What it means, let's read. Let's read the song in English. Do you see palm trees? Palm trees, I do not see. Do you see camels? Camels, I do not see. Perhaps for a moment, a shadow passed before my eyes. I see nothing, I see nothing. In Hebrew, it's "Eini ro'eh davar, ani ro'eh davar." And then the apizmon, the refrain says, a sign that we have not yet arrived, that the horizon is still distant, that your heart remains open to the four winds. And we must keep on walking and we must keep on marching, for the road still stretches on long. Naomi Shemer says, if you don't see the trees yet, then the trees are not there yet. If you don't see the camels, then we haven't gotten there yet. Do not have illusions that if you don't see, you make up things that you think you see. You have to know how to hold on, see those trees that you will get to, even if the trees are not here yet. That's difficult. That's hope. And today, when we talk about our peace with our neighbors, we really can't really see it happening yet. The fact that it's not happening yet, we can't imagine that it's going to happen tomorrow. It's not. What's going to happen tomorrow is war. That's what's going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're not going to have peace. But we will have peace. We will have peace. We will get there. And that is hope. And is knowing how to imagine that, knowing how to have an action plan, knowing how to bring people there with you, and knowing how to break down in that walk. And of course, without community, that cannot happen. We haven't talked about community, but I know you live community. So you know to change the world alone is impossible. With people around you and with you, it may be possible. So that's about creating intentional communities. So that's where I'm coming from.
You want to try to play it? My phone?
בסדר, בשמחה.
There we go.
So I will, כן, בבקשה. Well, it's a song.
אתה
סימן שעוד לא הגענו, אבל אנחנו נגיע. We're not there yet, but we will get there. So I hope you can feel in the days, in the midst of this war, how we have a hope and we aim for hope. It's not easy, not for you, not for us right now. But we are full of strength, inspiration, young generation, communities, civil societies, leadership. And we feel that strength and we will get there. We will. But we have to know it's not going to happen tomorrow. And that's maybe our task right now in bringing the younger generation with us because, and I will end with this, we don't have the alternative. We don't have the privilege not to have hope. We owe it to the people that gave their life for Israel and to the people that are growing up in our country and in the Jewish world. So,
Can you talk about why you're actually in the States? It's not just to come to Cleveland, Ohio. You shared with me that you're going to New York for something special.
כן, תודה. So on another note, what am I doing here? So in our center that we're building in Israel, we're building a lone soldier program and dormitory for Gerin Tzabal. So we have Israeli students on a gap year, living a whole year in our institution. And we just built a campus for lone soldiers. Lone soldiers, when they come to Israel, on Gerin Tzabal, and programs that they come as groups, they could go to secular kibbutzim or to Orthodox kibbutzim. There is no other alternative. Now, Orthodox and secular, that's fine. And I say that from the bottom of my heart. But that cannot be the only perception of Judaism, whether you're either or. So when we heard about that, it was kind of mind-blowing. People called me up and said, Yoav, do you have a program? And I said, we don't. But I knew this was a problem we had to solve. So fortunately enough, we built a campus right now, and I'm here to see the group in New York. I'm here to see the first group. Post-college students will come to Israel in August and live in Hanaton for 3 years, have a pre-army, then we'll be their home. So that's the main anchor of my visit here, but I'm privileged to be in places to talk to communities and to find partners that would like to help us build the state that we and you are dreaming of. So that was the anchor that brought me here, and I used that in order to. I met Rabbi in the Mandela convention a few years ago, and we started talking back then. So I'm happy it turned into a reality. תודה. תודה רבה. ותעבור.
Out.
No, we did not. No, we did not have to. We are in the lower gallery. We had about 2 months of missiles, but it's not like the upper. The upper gallery, Etzba Galil, had to move out. We suffered way less than they did, and we stayed home. כן. כן, ממש halfway. A little bit more. It's about halfway, כן.
In the middle of home.
No.
Will you give a plug for Merkaz?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Platform here.
I know.
Literally.
Merkaz. So much I wanted to say and I didn't say, and thank you for reminding me. So, I will say this. We do not need movements to pray to God. A person can pray to God by himself or can have a good teacher. But to change the Jewish world and to shape Israel, we need movements. Without movements, you cannot do it. And we have Merkaz. Merkaz is our movement's arm in the Jewish agency. And we have now elections. And the larger votes we get, the larger funds our movement gets, and we can sponsor more educational programs. Hanaton is on the edge of that because we are connected to the movement, but we are really Klal Yisrael, and I'm a conservative rabbi, so I'm saying that it's not because I directly benefit, I do the benefit, but Israel benefits from this. If you want to fight for pluralism, if you want to fight for educational programs, congregation, Merkaz, Merkaz, and what's the word? Forget it. What's so easy about this is you only have to vote. I cannot vote. People are living in Israel. You can vote, and I want you to know that the change you make is big. It's a big change because the movement is not funded by the state, and that's maybe one of the main public fundings that the movement gets. So talk to your friends, talk to anyone you can, and vote Merkaz to build a state of Israel as a pluralistic state. Mamash, I truly believe in that, and thank you for reminding me to address this point. Ken.
So for how to do it? Merkaz is.
Here, hold on, sorry.
Thank you. Sure, so the movement is the conservative movement. How to do it in this month's tidings, and it's other places too. There is, on the inside, there's a QR code right here. So you aim your camera on your phone at it, and the link takes you to where you vote, you put in your information. I think it takes you to, you get to vote for slate number 17. That's what we all want to support, slate number 17. And then it takes you to where you put in your information and your credit card information. It's $5 to participate. And then I think you can do more than one on at a time. So you can hand it off to somebody else and they can vote on the same, like the same visit to the website, I believe.
Road to Yasar, I've never heard about it.
I can't say vote early, vote often, but vote.
So
By April, by May.
you can have right there.
But mentioned Hanatone many times, and I just wonder if you could tell a little
I
bit
understand.
about it. I don't feel like I understand. I know there's pamphlets, but
Nothing's come to me. People
No.
I read. Other people.
So
Up in the gallery.
about Hanaton. Just an anecdote, Hanaton appears the name in the book of Yeshua as a border between the tribes of Yisachar and Zvulun. So Hanaton is a border. Hanaton was built in the mid-80s by the conservative movement and the state of Israel, when there was a plan to bring people out of Tel Aviv and Yerushalayim to the Galilee. In order to have more settlements in the Galilee, this is in the Green Line, of course. So it was built up as a socialist kibbutz, an idea of having an arm of agriculture, of Judaism, et cetera, et cetera. And in the mid-80s, as I'm sure several of you know, the kibbutz movement was really having major changes of what a kibbutz is. So Hanaton had hard times. There were about 40 families back then, most of them from the United States. Some people came from JTS. It was called Gari Nitzan, rabbinical students and a lot of people had those dreams. Very few actually got there. So they started building it in the mid-80s. I lived there in 1993 before my Army service. I did what's called civil service a year before you go to the Army in order to strengthen the community, work in agriculture, and strengthen the Kibbutz Hanaton. But Kibbutz Hanaton, during the year of 2000, 2001, 2002, really hit the hard bottom rock, some of them. It basically became an empty place, more or less. Everybody left. So some of you know the history of Hanaton a little bit. A lot of good intentions were put there, but it really didn't succeed. And I told you before that I was searching for an intentional community to live in Israel and to build Israel. And I looked at Hanaton, and Hanaton didn't have people inside, but what it did have, empty houses, empty synagogue, empty mikveh, a rundown educational center. So it was a sad place, but there was a structure, rundown structure, but there was a structure that we could see the dreams. We could see the potential more than we saw the risk, because young people, oh, that's how I was. It was crazy, but we saw the potential of building an intentional, pluralistic, idealistic community and building up a leadership center. I really saw that. And so did my wife. Of course, my wife said, no chance. So when we were in Jerusalem, I was finishing rabbinical school. I said, let's give it a shot. And a lot of us have dreams about building places. So I started having household meetings with people I grew up with in the youth movement in school. I went to their homes and we talked about building a pluralistic, intentional community. It's called a privatized kibbutz in Israel in terms of framing terms, because most of these communities are secular or Orthodox, or what's called in Israel secular Orthodox, Chiloni Dati, which is beautiful, but religion is always Orthodox, which is beseder, but that's just not us. So we gathered 18 families, moved there 6 families in the year 2009, started building up the community. And people came to Hanaton, people who grew up Orthodox, never heard in their life about the Masorti movement, never entered an egalitarian setting. But people moved to Hanaton from Orthodox, from secular, reform, conservative, searching, what have you may. And we created this young Israeli, also people who made Aliyah years ago who were searching for a community, and really a mosaic of not either or, but of a retzef, a rainbow, maybe of different, a spectrum of religious life. We observe Shabbat as a community, no cars, no parties, but people drive or not. It's like a camp, basically, except it's real life. And we're raising our kids there. So we also build a school. So there's a lot of building in the community and build up the institution, which is a separate entity. But remember I told you about those lone soldiers. So the lone soldiers are in our NGO, but they're adopted by families in the community. So that's the strength of what we're doing. We're looking years ahead. We're there, that's our home. So Hanaton has a connection to the Masorti movement, conservative movement, but it's also an open place, an egalitarian place. And I'm a proud conservative rabbi. I know some of my work is to make secular students of mine stay secular, but be passionate Jews. Same for Orthodox, same for Reform. I'm not trying to change everybody to be what they don't want to be. I'm trying to strengthen them to be open-minded and understand 2 things, that we're looking for a Jewish and democracy state together, and we're looking at perception of Judaism as Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim. These and these are the words of God. So that's basically Hanaton today. Today we're 200 families. We're going to be 350 in the next 5 years, I suppose. So we talked about things that make you optimistic. So that's not everything is perfect there, but maybe I should say this, we're in the Galilee and we live, teach, breathe Galilee. I did not grow up in the Galilee, but when you're in Jerusalem, you learn about Jerusalem. When you're in the Negev, you learn about the Negev. Galilee in the north was weak before this war. And we have a lot of work to do there. When you talk about the Galilee, Zionism will be tested not only in the Negev, in the Galilee. Israel society will be tested in the Galilee. Talk about Galilee, we talk about 3 components, Jews and Arabs living together, trying to form the same state, the same vision. We're not there yet. It's like that song, but we have to get there yet. But the mass of the people that want to get there with us, So Jews and Arabs living together, that's Galilee. Galilee is connection to land, agriculture, Zionism, the birth of it in the Galilee. So there's a lot of learning to be done there. And the Galilee is also identity. The move from Beit Mikdash to Beit Midrash, from a temple religion to a rabbinic religion, that's the Galilee. That's a Sanhedrin. Usha, Tzipori, Bet Sha'arim. Yavne was a nice anecdote. We give them that. It happened in the Galilee. It did. So we use that so we live Galilee, and we have to, I tell my students to come back to live in the Galilee. Don't think that everybody listens to me. I'm not that Mara Beatra, but we have to, so we care about Israel, but we have to build the north back again. So that's also a part of Hanaton. So when you're in Israel, it's where we live. You're welcome to come by, to drop by, to see and to be strengthened by seeing another community in Israel. Many, many great communities in Israel. Hanaton aims to be one of them. That's a few words about Hanaton. Nitro, toda.
Rabbi Ende, I just want to, from the bottom of our heart, Kirpan, thank you so much for being here. Let's give Rabbi Ende a round. You've given us so many gifts and so much to think about. One thing that I'm just personally taking away, which I'm so grateful about, is I think so many rabbis think that our job in this moment is to give people hope, and I think rightfully so. But in my mind, that means stay away from despair. There's nothing to be had from despair. Just cling to hope, right? But you've given me something much more valuable than that, which is we can't get rid of our despair. I mean, we are all feeling despair, and rightfully so. How can we channel that for something productive and uplifting and use it? Use the despair, and that to me is just so. And then obviously we're all floating and looking for an anchor, and you've given us such a helpful framework to see hope as an anchor. And lastly, that final piece about leadership, that it by definition means envisioning something that doesn't exist yet and not losing hope with that. So everybody have your own takeaway. That wasn't me giving you your takeaways, but it's what some of the things that I'm taking away. I'm so grateful for. Thank you also for increasing this, strengthening our tie, our food to you and your community. And we hope it only continues to strengthen and that we can continue to be in relationship and in contact. Thank you so much again. Enjoy your dinner. I know you haven't had the chance yet. And thank you everybody for being here. I want to let you know when the next one is. That's why my phone went off. It came to me as a photo slideshow instead of a still photo. But our next Voices of Israel session is Sunday, March 30th. It's Dr. Benjamin Berman Gladstone. He is coming to us from Columbia University. You may have heard of this university. It's been in the news. He teaches none other than Zionism. So he has had a very interesting experience. He's a dear personal friend, one of the most knowledgeable historians I know. I'm very lucky to know him, and we're very lucky to benefit from his perspective, his knowledge, his experience. He's zooming in, will be hybrid. With lunch. So this will be Sunday, March 30th, 12 p.m. Lunch served here. It'll be hybrid. And then our final scheduled session, we're going to have Tamar Biala, who is sick and couldn't, we're going to reschedule her, so we'll let you know about her. But our final scheduled speaker, Monday, March 31st, so that's literally the next day. So it's a Sunday, Monday, 1, 2, 2 for, yeah. That'll be again like this, in person, 7 p.m. It's Rabbi Nolan. Oh, I'm sorry, 6:30. I have an old one here. So following Minyan, 6:30, just like this one, following Minyan with dinner. He is a rabbi, the senior rabbi at Valley Beth Shalom in Los Angeles. It's the conservative synagogue that I grew up at. He's written a book called The Case for Dual Loyalty, where he discusses an anti-Semitic trope that Jews, you can't trust them as loyal patriots to America because they have a dual loyalty to Israel. And in the aftermath of October 7th, he's sort of making the case for how do you carry an authentic dual loyalty to both homelands, both countries. So it'll be very fruitful. We'll have books that we'll distribute as well, and he'll sign some. So that's our series. It's online on the website. You can register. And thank you again so much, Rabbi Ende. Thank you so much. to the Berkowitz Fund that has made this possible. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your passion and for your leadership. Thank you so much. And thank you to Lisa and her kitchen staff. I don't know. Thank you so much, everyone, for a delicious dinner. Thank you, everyone. And Era to Lila to, oh, and everything is compostable. Everything can go in the green bin. So thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
I have